The Loss of Native Language. Hawaii 1850 to present, New Zealand 1850 to present, by Zachary Gaea and Christopher Elgarico. If you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in his language, that goes to his heart. As of 1983, only around 2,500 people speak fluent Hawaiian. As of 1978, only 18% of Maori population speaks fluently. We chose to do this subject because we believe that native language is important to its people, and future generations should not be denied the opportunity to learn their native tongue. Native languages also give the people a sense of identity and pride. The decline in fluency and usage of the Hawaiian and Maori language threatened the survival of the native tongue. Strong influence of Western culture and English language. Prior to 1980s, lack of usage in education system. Fewer fluent speaking elders to pass on language. Hawaiian elders, kupuna, Maori elders, kaumatua. 1893, Hawaiian Kingdom overthrown. 1896, use of Hawaiian language in schools is outlawed. 1922, Hawaiian language officially labeled foreign at University of Hawaii. 1984, Punana Leo begins. 1987, Hawaiian immersion program begins. 2008, first dissertation written in Olelo, Hawaii at UH Manoa. (1867) Native Schools Act decrees that English is only language used in school system. 1970s, rapid decline in native speakers. 1980s, political movement focusing on English. 1987, Maori becomes an official language in New Zealand. 2004, first broadcast of Maori television network. Effects of the problem. Loss of native language causes. Loss of tradition, loss of culture, impacts younger generations. Solutions. Language immersion programs in schools, increased cultural practices, language revival initiatives, political support to create community events that foster native language. Language immersion schools are a critical part of trying to restore the languages of Hawaiian and Maori. Aha Punana Leo and Te Kohanga Reo are family-based environments that puts kids 0 to 6 years old with native speakers. Aha Punana Leo started in 1984. The first Punana Leo established was in Kekaha, before being spread out to the other islands. Once a family enters a program, they must observe the Hawaiian language. The program is a copy of the Maori program Te Kohanga Reo. Te Kohanga Reo began in 1981 by the Department of Maori Affairs. The first Kohanga Reo was opened in 1982. About 100 Kohanga Reo was established in 1982 after the first one, and then it continued to grow until 1994. Hula is a form of resistance. Hula was banned in 1820 by the missionaries, but King David Kalakaua brought hula back. Then the language was banned from being spoken in school. Even if not spoken, you hear the language and you know the songs. You hear them on the radio. We're surrounded even though you don't understand. So hula and Hawaiian music was helped to perpetuate the language.
Another way language is being revived in New Zealand is Language Week. Language Week was established in 1975 by the Maori Language Commission and is held annually to celebrate the Maori language. Little things that show Hawaiian language is on the rise are Olelo o Kala and the Olelo Room. Olelo o Kala is a weekly segment on the Hawaiian News Now morning show that features a new Hawaiian word every morning. Also, the Olelo Room at Aulani is a lounge that is inspired by the Hawaiian language. Also, all the people who work in the lounge can speak fluent Hawaiian. Linguists have discovered a previously undocumented indigenous sign language. This is the first time a new language has been discovered in the US since the 1930s. Hawaiian Sign Language has been in use since the 1820s. In order to determine whether Hawaiian Sign Language is an independent language rather than a dialect of American Sign Language, the researchers interviewed 21 native Hawaiian Sign Language signers on 4 different Hawaiian islands. They found that 80% of the basic vocabulary differs from American Sign Language. Hawaii's deaf have been using Hawaiian Sign Language in the early 19th century, and it has been gradually displaced by American Sign Language from the 1940s on. By 1950, American Sign Language was the dominant sign language. Today, there are only about 100 Hawaiians left who know the language, and most of them are over 60 years old. In conclusion, native language is imperative to passing on culture from generation to generation. Revitalization of both Hawaiian and Maori language is in full effect. Both nations are at its strongest point in language revival over the last 30 years.